Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Daniel Austin, and today I will be giving my Savvy Coders Data Analytics in Python Capstone presentation. The title of my presentation is Trends in NCAA Division I Men's Basketball Championship Teams. Everywhere you go, if you're familiar with basketball at all, any gym, any park, any barbershop, there's always the debate that basketball is changing. Players don't play the same. The game was rougher at this point, this, that, and the next. And I'm here to try to figure out statistically if there's really been any kind of change in national title winners from the year 2000 to current. Before we get started with that, just a little bit about myself. Again, my name is Daniel Austin. I'm originally from Pensacola, Florida. I'm a highly decorated U.S. Navy veteran. I have over 14 years of experience working in the healthcare and human resources industries. Hobbies and interests of mine include musical production and sports, especially college basketball, being that it is March Madness right now. One fun fact about that is I actually did work as a manager for the Baylor Women's Lady Bears basketball team, and that was an awesome job. So why did I choose Savvy Coders, Data Analytics, and Python course? During my previous experience working in management consulting, I developed an affinity, like a magnetism towards solving problems using data, spreadsheets, and I was starting to learn some about different databases and so on and so forth in SQL. But after being subject to a company-wide layoff, I decided that that was the right opportunity to use that little setback to upskill myself and transition to a more tech-focused career in IT, specifically data analytics. All right. Agile and Scrum framework. So using the Agile and Scrum methodologies, we were able to refine our specific capstone requirements into more manageable portions and parse those out so we can keep better track of those and execute them on a weekly basis. So throughout the course, I was afforded the opportunity to act as Scrum Master, where I led the daily stand-up meetings where we discussed what we had completed most recently, if there are any barriers or obstacles in the way, how we were able to overcome those, or how could we mitigate what was next to come if we noticed any type of potential risk coming our way. I was also afforded the opportunity to act as product owner, in which I helped to maintain the product backlog and ensure that backlog refinement and story point allotment was conducted to mitigate any bottlenecks during the sprint. So basically just making sure that we're estimating the amount of work that we're doing properly so that way we don't underestimate things that might take more time or more effort, simulating just like you would in a daily scrum, at an established organization. In addition to the daily scrums, we also conducted sprint planning meetings and retrospectives for upcoming sprints, and the retrospectives to reflect on the previous sprint that just transpired. Hypothesis and approach. So the question at hand, right? Has the recipe to win a national championship really changed, or are fans just more supportive of teams from the years and the eras that they're most familiar with, i.e., I grew up watching Michael Jordan, so he's my favorite player. He's the GOAT. He's the greatest of all time, right? But for some players, that might be Magic. For some players, that might be Kobe. For some, it might be LeBron, right, with the younger generation. I believe that even with new rules and different styles of play, people used to think that the game was more physical, but the game itself has not changed as a whole. I don't think significantly enough for there to be a huge difference in the statistics of national championship winning teams from the years 2000 to 2023. For my main data sources, I used ESPN.com, NCAA.org, and sportsreference.com. Now that we're talking about data, let's get into the wrangling portion of that. As you can see here on the top photo, there were some columns there that were unnecessary. So I was able to expunge those columns, as well as rows that were contained in the data that had no value. So using Python programming, I was able to edit that data so that that way it was a little bit more clean and easier to work with later on in the future. I also did some data wrangling in Excel. Sorry for the small font there, but as you can see, I have all of the data laid out there. And then I was able to calculate averages, medians, minimums, maximums, standard deviations, and variances, just to analyze, what trends may be occurring, or, who has the largest variance or the gap, or, the difference in standard deviation on assists per game or rebounds per game per each team that has won a championship since 2000. Here's an example of one of the graphs that I created using Tableau for data visualization. This one is average assists per game. An assist is basically once a player scores, if that player was passed the ball by somebody else, that would be considered an assist. And they say, teams with high assist numbers do well because they're more cohesive, they trust each other, they have better team chemistry. As you can see here, the high and low is 19 and 12 respectively. Not too much of a difference. You can tell here that these are championship caliber teams, and they're going to pass the ball fairly well. Sometimes it's also dependent on the coach and the plays and the different schemes that they may be running as to whether or not passing the ball more often is in part of their actual game plan. Here I have a graph here for average points per game, right, with year and team at the bottom and points per game on the y-axis. And as you can see, all of these teams, championship caliber, these are the top dogs, right? And everybody's scoring over 70 points a game. And that's quite a bit in college basketball. And that's exactly why these are the winners. Across the board, for all of the graphs that I have, for the most part, you're going to see the same kind of similarity, very close grouping between the max number and the min number. And that's because they're all in that same top tier bracket. These are all the winners. So I'm not going to expound any further really on that part. You'll see the same thing here with 3-point percentages. Not too much different. Your low being 32% and your high being just over 40%. Basically 1 in 3 3-point shots is being made, and it also depends too on how many 3-point shots these teams are taking. Some teams are better shooting teams. They take more shots and therefore might have lower 3-point percentages, but they also make more because they take more 3-point shots. So, that could always be the case. And rebounding is also, definitely always important, because that's going to determine possession time of the ball. And as you can see, all of these teams have, 34 plus rebounds a game. And then, you'll have teams that are kind of stand out, and normally that has to do with having an exceptional, what you call front court, which would be your forward players. Those are the big guys, your Shaquille O'Neals, your Dwight Howards. These are the guys that are protecting the rim, and you're going to average more rebounds per game when you have players of that type. And I'm actually going to come back to that in just a second. One thing that I did notice that was quite interesting as I conducted this study is that of the 32, the NCAA men's Division I conferences, right? Conferences have X number of schools each, and those conferences play games against each other, and they have conference, championships. That's even before March Madness. You have your conference championships. And there are only 5 conferences in which have national title winning teams over the past 23 years, with Big East and the ACC having both 8 national title wins each in the last 23 years. So essentially, if you're a high school prospect coming out, you're coming out of high school, a 4 or 5-star recruit going to the Big East or the ACC, Big 12, Big 10, SEC, you got a fair shot at, possibly being on a team that could go all the way. That's at least based off of the statistics and the data that I was able to gather in this experiment. All right, takeaways and conclusions. Like I already mentioned, I was surprised to see that there was only 5 conferences in which all of the title holders belong to over the last 23 years. I think given a greater time frame and access to more data, I probably would have liked to compare players and positions statistics specifically to see, like for stats like rebounds and blocks, player performance basically based on position, I think would have given me a lot more insight into if, there was a change in maybe, guards are holding on to the ball longer, or we're no longer dumping down to the big man, or whatever it may be. However, to conclude, based on my analysis of the data acquired, I confirm my hypothesis that I think there's no major statistical shift in NCAA men's Division I national championship winning teams. I think that fans are fans, and they'll always be fans, and you're going to like whoever, you grew up watching, and whoever made that biggest impact on you. For me, I think it's all about still just loving the game. As far as next steps, I truly hope, as I conclude this wonderful course over the last 12 weeks, to continue to build on the skills that I've learned and apply them in order to add value to my prospective employer to help them make data-driven, informed decisions. Ladies and gentlemen, that's all I have for today. Thank you so much for your time. God bless. Take care.